Some stories are buried, others are erased. Each tale you hear is either true or spun from fiction. It's up to you to decide. Subscribe if you haven't. Dim the lights. Let's begin. The Island of Children. 1. When they arrived in 1973, they called it a French name that meant the Lost Island of Children. Others simply called it the Island of Lost Children. Similar, but not quite the same. One implied someone had walked away. The other that they were never meant to be there at all. The island was just a loose crumb of earth, balancing on the breath of the sea. A volcanic rise, 10 kilometers wide, shaped like a hand pressed flat into the water. Limestone caves freckled its back. Eastern cliffs dropped off like a snapped jaw. Tide pools winked to the west. On most maps, it didn't exist. The trees were thick-trunked, short-canopied, their bark a pale, almost pink tone, like bleached driftwood. No one recognized the species. Beneath them, the undergrowth flowered year-round, tufts of violet and yellow, the petals waxy and bitter-smelling, as if the plants had evolved to warn you not to touch. The island had clearly withstood centuries of typhoons that lapped in like waves on the shore. The limestone ridges were carved like ribs, worn smooth on the windward side, jagged on the lee. The volcano that birthed it had been silent for millennia. No visible vent remained, and in the tide pools, strange life. Needle-legged shrimp the colour of rust, fish with eyes too large and fins too soft, crabs that never moved unless watched. When they flipped over stones, they found nothing but holes. Its nearest neighbours were forgettable. Farquhar Atoll, adrift like a lazy thought, 2 days west by modern boat. Chagos Archipelago, far to the northeast, its coral lips barely whispering land. There were no safe harbours, no airstrips. If you arrived, it was by mistake. But when you left, it was on purpose. It was a Chilean environmental team that rediscovered the island first. No one was more surprised than the island, never having been aware it was lost. They were following the migration patterns of the black-throated petrel thought extinct here and found them nesting. They came with the best intentions. Bird tags, field guides, bird song, but duly ready for spiders, sunstroke, bird shit. What they got instead was silence, and an overwhelming sense that they'd interrupted something mid-sentence. The mysterious rings of stone. Foundations, maybe, or shrines. Modern men always assume their ancestors worshipped all day instead of eating, drinking, shagging and killing. They tagged their birds, left the ruins mostly untouched, and gladly returned home after a cyclone whipped the ocean into a tantrum. At home in the bars. After conferences, they bragged about their strange find. The first reports were dismissed. The petrel had been misidentified. The stone rings were volcanic trickery. The coordinates must be wrong. But one man at the University of Concepcion, a soft-spoken ornithologist named Dominguez, insisted on returning. He brought a new team, including a student who would later describe the island as a place that doesn't breathe. Her journal, smudged with salt, ended mid-sentence. They vanished back into the busy current of people, who left no further mark on history. 2, 3 years later, a French archaeological team arrived. They were hoping, at best, for colonial wreckage. Rusted knives, maybe a sailor's bone with a curved tobacco pipe. That's what you usually find out here. Signs of men who tried and failed to make an island love them. The first ashore was Dr. Julian Fontaine, 37, a French archaeologist whose real specialty was Roman aqueducts and toilets, anything involving the flow of water. This was supposed to be a sabbatical, a warm island in the sun, off the charts. He brought 3 grad students, 2 cases of Pernod, and a manual typewriter. Instead, they found bones, tiny ones. By the end of their 3rd season, they had unearthed 83 full skeletons, all of them children. No adults, no elders, no worn hips, no teeth with stories. Just children, all under 12. Back in Paris, the osteologists sat in a white-tiled lab that smelled of rubber gloves and strong tea. Each child's remains were laid out like lines of poetry, brittle, silent, eerily clean. The enamel was pristine, no milk teeth, no rot, no grit, as if they'd eaten something so soft, so yielding, that chewing wasn't required, or they hadn't lived long enough to need it. A femur curved oddly, a skull mirrored another dated 5 centuries earlier. No clear era, no clear cause, just echoes. At first, they blamed it on dwarfism, the island effect, that old evolutionary trick where everything shrinks to fit the cupboard. It's locked in. It's happened before. On Flores, there were hobbit-like humans who coexisted with 3-foot elephants. On Cyprus, pygmy hippos waddled between lemon trees. Even Shetland ponies are born from a kind of island spell. But this wasn't that. Pelvic fusion, growth plates, dental staging. The bones were honest. They were children. And they had been for a very long time. Radiocarbon tests unravelled like a bad dream. The deaths didn't belong to a single era. They spanned centuries, maybe more. Some had DNA overlap. Most didn't, not cousins, not tribes. It was as if 100 different families had all lost the same child to the same place. And they weren't dropped in graves. They were arranged, curled like sleep, some in clusters, others in stone bowls, buried a metre deep, safe from storms. No mass graves, no haste. At the foot of each skeleton, a single black stone, palm-sized, volcanic glass, smooth. The island has no volcano anymore. Later tests linked the stones to a caldera vein near Madagascar, 1,800 kilometres away. No boats, no docks, no trade. And yet, there they were, as if carried by hand, placed like punctuation. The children had not suffered. No blade wounds, no fractured skulls, no marks of starvation. Last meals, fish, seeds, fruit, enough. The island had fed them and then stopped. No disease, no predators, no plausible excuse, just quiet. 3. One final formal excavation was approved, this time with more geologists. They confirmed what some had suspected. The island was laced with caves. Some were shallow pockets where birds roosted. Others ran deeper, cool as forgotten cellars. They found the most important cave in late spring, near the eastern cliff. At first it was just a circle, a crude one, etched in the rock above the entrance. Around it were other symbols, a tree with many roots, a face with no mouth, a curled sleeping shape like a snail or embryo. And at the centre, always, the circle. They dug slowly at first, carefully, setting up a grid system with string and stakes. They used trowels and brushes, dental picks and bamboo skewers, buckets and sieves. The upper chambers were bare, cool tunnels of stone, worn smooth by time. Then came the artefacts that they marked with small coloured flags. The rock tools, clay bowls, a flute carved from bone, etched with spirals. And then there were the paintings. The pigment was organic, crushed berries, burnt bone, fish oil, and something else, a secretion from petrels, normally used in nests. Used here too, like glue or blood. The hues had no right to survive, but they did. The brushstrokes were clumsy at first, figures with oversized heads, bright colours, handprints layered over handprints. But over time, they grew more precise. The pigment changed, the figures gained detail, woven garments held hands, small fires, star maps, no weapons, no rulers, no walls, and no signs of struggle. Week after week, the team worked deeper. They dated the soil layers. The oldest art went back perhaps 2,000 years, but the cave had been used continuously, not a burial site, a home, a civilization of children. Around the children were paintings of fantastical beasts. One had a neck like a whip and wings wide as nightmares, later identified as a cousin of Pteranodon longiceps. It would have skimmed low over primeval lagoons, its wingspan reaching nearly 7 meters. Bones hollow as a child's finger, a head shaped like a dagger, eyes angled for hunting. Its colour guessed from melanosomes, ash-blue wings with marbled stripes, and a crown of orange or crimson. The skin leathery. The call, not a shriek but a rasping bark, half hyena, half hornet. It lived at the edge of the Cretaceous and vanished just before the world did. 67 million years ago, long enough to be forgotten, surely not living when the children were. They dug until they entered the final chamber. There, beneath the layers, beneath the stone slab, they found a single small body. A girl, perhaps 7 or 8. Her skull had been caved in, clean, deliberate. A hole the size of a river stone punched through the crown. Around her were broken pieces of red ochre. Her hands had been painted yellow, and the yellow flakes were now scattered about. And after that, everything changed. The paintings above this level were different. The bright colours turned black, the handprints became clawed, the smiling faces vanished. The girl with the hole in her head appeared over and over, first once, then a dozen times, then everywhere. In every pose, with empty eyes, with open mouth, sometimes reaching, sometimes devouring, sometimes crowned. The final layers were chaotic, fires, spirals, falling stars. Then silence, no more paintings, no bones, no trace. The children were gone within a short time of the girl's death, less than a century. 4. Today the island is home to birds, snakes, and the kind of rats that wait until you blink, then blink back from somewhere else. There are no mammals, but there is fresh water, soil rich in calcium. The food chain hums just enough to keep things twitching, which is to say, it is barely enough, but enough. Fontaine's team began to splinter. One student developed a fever that never broke, just hovered, low and constant, like a hum behind the eyes. Another packed quietly at dawn and left without saying goodbye. The geologist, who'd once slept in lava tubes in Iceland, refused to enter the cave again. It felt wrong, he said, like sleeping on your own grave. That was all. And Fontaine, once the most sceptical of them all, grew obsessed. He returned to the cave each morning before the others, spent hours in the final chamber, taking notes he never showed. He began to speak of the paintings as if they were still happening. New ones, he once said, could be forming now. No one ever knew what he meant. Dr. Alain Morel was the first to say aloud what others whispered. In 1976, he published a short abstract titled Enfants sans aînés, Children Without Elders. It appeared in print once, then disappeared. Later, analyses tried to reconstruct what life in the painted village might have looked like before the change. From the char patterns in the soot room to the careful placement of bowls and shells, a haunting picture emerged. Children tending root gardens, weaving reed mats, sorting crushed shells by size. No blood, no barricades, just silence. As if they knew what to do. By instinct, or by something older. Now they had better dates. It appeared that for almost 2,000 years it was a happy place, wrote one anthropologist. It was orderly, it worked. The island fed them, but then it ended. No more toys, no more carved dolls tucked in corners, no more bird bones turned into whistles. What child lives without play? Something was missing. That summer, a map from the NOAA Hydrographic Survey showed the island in two places, once where it belonged, and once 300 miles east. The map was corrected. The officer who logged the coordinates resigned. He later said the numbers made him nauseous. UNESCO cited the site, then uncited it. The journal was reprinted, the issue renumbered, the library copies walked away. Morel retired to Normandy, near where the sea eats the cliffs. He bought a narrow house with moss on the door and salt in the wood. He stopped writing, then stopped speaking. His daughter says he kept a black stone on his bedside table. When she once asked why, he answered only, "They weren't dead," just paused. 5. Only one team member ever returned. Juliette Fournier, technician, 26. Precise, quiet. Would wind string around her fingers when she spoke. In 1984, she went back, not with a university, not with a grant, just her and her fiancé, Luke, a marine biologist with a crooked nose and a camera he never let go of. They caught rides on 3 separate vessels, a research ship out of Réunion, a rust-ribbed trawler crewed by Congolese fishermen, and finally a hired catamaran that lost its rudder halfway there. The journey took 19 days. They anchored off the northern reef and swam ashore with waterproof packs. No flag, no mission, just a field recorder, some dried fruit, and the belief that something had been left unfinished. The tape survives. 11 minutes. Her voice is hushed but calm. The caves are still there, she says. The little tools, the bowls. It's like they were called to dinner and forgot to come back. She describes the soot room again, but also a new chamber, narrow, steep, hotter, not present on any earlier sketch. The air inside, she says, felt used. Not stale, not old, just recently borrowed. Above the chamber's mouth, a single glyph, etched deep. A perfect circle, broken clean through the middle, split like an eye that no longer sees. It was not on any earlier wall. No child had painted it. She never recorded another tape. Neither returned to the island again. Juliette never married. Most of the artifacts had already vanished by then. Packed, shipped, misfiled. Some sent to the Smithsonian, others to the Musée de l'Homme. Ask to see them now, and you'll get a shrug. Not in the catalogue. That too is common. They are somewhere, but not where they should be. 3 photographs remain. One shows a ring of stones, like a child's game, long since ended. Another, a shallow coral bowl, its inside smeared dark. The last shows 3 small skulls arranged in a triangle, a black stone at each corner. On the back, handwritten in ink faded to rust, exiles, exiled. 6. It's still spoken of, but softly, mostly at the dinner parties of biologists or in bed. There were 3 competing hypotheses. Hypothesis 1, the parental island. Some say there was a second island that must have sunk beneath the sea, like Atlantis did. A place that raised children like crops, each in their own plot, kept apart until age 12. Isolation wasn't cruelty, it was design. No mirrors, no voices, no comparison. A society built on separation. Maybe once a year they gathered to learn, to mate, to vanish. Then the cycle began again. That's the theory anyway. The stone rings support it, the sameness, the silence. But no adult beds, no tools too large, and no one's ever found the second island. No docks, no adult bones, no trail of ash or sail, just water. As if the parents never meant to be found, or were never real at all. Hypothesis 2, the rift. A strange theory. There were no boats, no cult, no parents, just a tear, a soft place in the fabric of the world. The rift was a fold in the map, an island that hums on certain nights and disappears by morning. The children wandered in, or were born there, or slipped sideways from somewhere else. The spiral carvings, the faceless figure, the unnatural quiet, all signs of a place not quite stitched to this world. That's why the birds changed songs, why the glyphs refused translation. Nothing was left behind, because nothing was meant to last. The rift doesn't take you, it edits you, crops the world, keeps the children, removes the rest. Hypothesis 3, tampering. And finally, the theory no one wants to say aloud, that someone interfered, that something was altered. The bones were staged, the glyphs were added, that the soot and bowls and coral were arranged for effect. But why? And who? There were no tire tracks, no cigarette butts, no gear. Maybe they were made to vanish, or worse, maybe they walked into the sea. 7. Today, the island is sealed. Officially a bird reserve. No press, no visitors, no trespass. The last aerial photo dates to 1989. The circles are still visible, the trees thin with age. No one has returned, no one is allowed. They did not leave guards. It is guarded, like many Pacific islands, by its isolation. We don't know what happened there. We don't know where the children came from, only that they were there. At least 83 skeletons, all under 12, no adults. There had never been any adults, only children and the stones, and the silence they left behind. 8. I have my own theory. Do you want to hear it? In the beginning it was a garden, paradise, an Eden. No bricks, no gods, no graves, just earth and water and children. They drew their world in circles, they painted stars and reeds and animals with too many eyes. They danced in ash, they slept curled like seeds. They sang, maybe, or listened. No war, no rot, no voices from above. But something changed. And blood, once spilled, is hard to unspill. The drawings turned dark, the hands became claws. The bright pigment gave way to black. The girl appeared again and again, mouth open, head split like a fruit. And then Nothing. No more colours. No more stories. Silence. The garden was gone. Not burned, not buried. Just gone. The children were cast out. Maybe there were once many Edens scattered across the earth, and they all fought to survive and retain their innocence. Maybe there were never supposed to be any adults at all, but they failed. One by one they winked out or drowned beneath the sea, leaving us in darkness. Was it true or just a well-told lie? Tell us what you believe and why. We know many of you listen late at night, sometimes while drifting off to sleep. Maybe you're wrapped in polar bear blankets, deep in the Arctic dark. Maybe you're swinging in a jungle hammock, wrapped up like a snack. Or maybe you're alone in a quiet room, or so you think. Let us know where you're listening from, and whether this story kept you awake or gave you good dreams. And one more thing. If you know a rare or hidden place, a ruin, an old legend, a forgotten town, share it in the comments. Your suggestion might become part of the Atlas. If you enjoyed wandering these forgotten corners, subscribe and join us again for another journey into the unknown.